Okay, I'll speak in English because my Lithuanian is awesome. So, first of all, I want to say a disclaimer that I'm going to speak about 7.0, 1, 2, and then some drafts and some other things. So don't think that everything is in the slides is actually implemented, or you can actually use it. And there are more features that I'm going to talk about. Some of them I skip because they are very small, and some deprecations that I don't think was useful to mention. First question, does anyone use PHP 7 production? Do you use the full features of PHP 7 or just enable it and that's about it?
Some of the features.
Some of the features. We enabled actually last week, but we have like 3 new features only with PHP 7 that broke everyone's local environment. So, okay, I'm going to talk about a few parts, and within those parts I'll explain each version where they are at. So most important, I guess, performance. Then I mention uniform variable syntax, which is actually the only break compatibility that there is. Then few utilities that I think they are quite handy. Some errors, type hinting, which everyone wants to talk about, and immutability, as is a hot topic. About performance, abstract syntax 3 is one new thing is being added to the compiler steps. So before there was the token step and then went directly to opcodes. But right now for version 7 we use a step which is abstract syntax 3, is used in lots of compilers. And that helps a little bit like the maintainability of PHP code itself. And also it improves a little bit the static analysis. If this lets me, I'll show a little bit how the compiler process is done. We have very simple code here that you cannot really see. That goes into a token list. And here, that second step is a brand new, where you can see that it breaks into a bit more opcode style syntax before going to actually opcodes. So that will help some syntax analyzing tools, static analyzers, to find out some more things and to give us extra information, like if we have wrong types in wrong functions, etc. One step before the actual execution time. The performance one, I would like to go a bit deeper, but it's a bit complicated. But here's a little description of what has been changed. So basically before there were a lot of access to memory. Here it's been reduced. So internally the actual interpreter uses a lot less pointers. So for simple data types, null, bools, floats, etc. Before we had one indirection, so there was one pointer to an actually integer. That was being removed in PHP 7. So simple data types are always copied regardless of what data it is. And in a bit more complex style, like arrays, they are copy and write, which means they are only copied if something is being modified. So if we have two arrays identical, they are actually one pointer pointing to that array, and you don't need to create more memory. So if you want to know more about the internal improvements, I recommend one talk from Nikita Polov, I believe. He's the actual guy that improved all those things. And it's in YouTube available. That thing was released 6 months ago in one of the conferences. So those improvements means it's 50% less memory and CPU use, and more or less 2 times faster execution times. This chart is actually from our production server when we enable PHP 7. So the blue zone is actually PHP 7 time. And if you can see, at that point went basically to half. And that had very little cost. We barely need to change a few things to make it enabled. And that was quite nice, 50% improvement without doing pretty much anything. Here is the only busy break. So I'll explain it quite simply. Here we have the function which contains the name of the function that we're going to execute. So in PHP 7 we could just use it directly, customer, and then the function, and that would return us, would call the function. What happens in PHP 7 is the code is executed left to right. So first goes to this part, and later it goes to that part. So it would actually check all of this, and it would try to find this variable name without checking the contents of it. So in PHP 7, if we want to check, fuck, that actually should be here. To check the name of the function, then we need to put some curly brackets. So it actually evaluates first the name, and then the function call in console. Here there are some more examples so we can see a bit more clear. So in PHP 5, it checks the content of this before going to this part. And here is how it would be. In PHP 7, it would go first. So the left variable would be interpreted before than the rest. And basically what we do, it would break. Here would be one more example. This is one of the utilities that I think they are quite useful. What this means is it would actually take the first not null value or true value, so we can concatenate multiple of those, and we don't need to have very ugly and large code. To do the same line that we have here, we would need 4 in PHP 5. This has already been implemented in PHP 7. Here for probably PHP 7.2 is not clear in that RFF. Is null coalescent assignment. So it's basically the same, but assigns directly. This has already been approved, but hasn't been implemented. So basically when you want to make sure that you have a default value, you can assign it directly to that variable. Here's another feature or change in PHP 7. Basically, errors and exceptions, they both inherit or implement throwable interface. So they come from a different, how to say, family. So throwable would be in the top, and then error and exception would be at the top. What that means is we can actually catch errors. So instead of having a 500, we can actually catch it and treat it different in our code. I don't think it's the most useful normally, but in some cases you might want to use it, maybe when you have some error logging or you have an API, you could give a bit more information for the user. I guess this is the most important, scalar type hinting. So scalar types are the simple data types, integers, booleans, strings, and floats. And in order to use the full of it, we need to define it. In order to define it, you need to do it per file base. So the first thing needs to be in the file. It should be the declare statement to make a strict types 1. If we don't have this statement, it would actually work like it did before. PHP tries to cast things automatically and make the things a bit easier and more forgivable. So in this function, we just see that actually float is possible to be casted. Possible to be hinted. If it's not a float, you will throw an error if we have strict types 1. This is another new feature. So basically we can have return types, but this can be any scalar or not scalar. So in this example, we get the current user and we return the user itself. So if we have it, we return the current user, which needs to be a user class. However, this brings a little bit of issue, as in some cases we have a function, but we don't actually have a user. Like it could be that it's not logged in or the session is not there. So a few options you could do is to actually return a new empty user and to check if the user actually exists, if it's verified or something like that. But you could throw an exception. Another way to do it is not to actually do the type hinting for return user and just remove this part. The nice thing is in 7.1 we already have a solution for it. So this question mark before, I have no idea what is before, but it's before, means that we can actually return null. This is in development, so we cannot use it yet, but soon should be available. I don't know, the guys that use PHP 7. How do you manage when you want to do type hinting and you don't actually have something to return? Like you return a negative integer, or how do you manage? Throw an exception, always? I think it makes the code a little bit ugly, like every time you don't find to throw exceptions and try catch. So definitely looking forward to the nullable type. That is actually possible for the arguments, because if you have an argument that is null for some reason, you would actually throw an exception as well. So you can use that ugly question mark in front as well for the arguments. That's another one. If someone used Java, would remember that. So basically, it's the void return types. If you don't want to return anything at all, if that function doesn't need to return, you can make it explicit. In case someone returns something, you actually throw an error. And this in 7.1, before you could have constants, but you couldn't have any privacy within them, any visibility. So right now for 7.1, we would be able to make some constants private, public, or protected. By default, they are still public though. And this been requested, I think it's like 3 months ago, to actually have hinting or strict types in the classes itself. So that would definitely look exactly like Java. You could have the string or the integer type of the variables inside the classes, and then if you assign it or you try to do something with it that is not that type, you would throw an error. That's a draft. I don't know if it's going to be approved or not. I don't know for what version it would be, but it's been requested. And then this is another draft. So for people that like immutable classes, there will be an extra keyword here, like final or something before of the class, that you would create a constructor. Every time you try to change this property inside, you would also throw an exception. This is also a draft, and it's not clear, it's not in voting process, so it's not sure it's going to be implemented, but there's a big chance it is. And that's about it. I kept it quite short, so any question?
Do you enable opcache in your production mode? Opcache extension for PHP?
I didn't do it myself, but I imagine they will have some sort of cache. Do you have opcache directly? Yes.
Okay.
So
I read that opcache in PHP 7 will work 7 times faster than PHP 5. Did you try to enable it in development mode maybe?
in development would be 7 times faster than
opcache in PHP 7 is much more faster than opcache in PHP 5.
yes.
Did you try to enable it?
I don't know if it's much more faster because opcache should be the opcodes that are stored there.
Oh.
So I think it would be faster because PHP 7 interpreter is faster itself.
Yeah,
but 7 times faster doesn't sound like right.
Not 7 few times, sorry.
Yeah, 2-3 times it should be faster, but opcache shouldn't make a much bigger difference in 5 than...
In PHP 7 it do better optimization. It compiles and then improves this compiled code.
The interpretation of the code is...
No, code have compiled cache, and this compiled cache is improved and optimizing, like array constants and etc. So it's much more faster and less memory using.
I think it would be the interpretation process of that, but of course the cache of the ops, it helps.
Okay,
because the changes has been before, like that abstract syntax tricks is before going the ops, and when you do the op caching, you're actually keeping, if I show that bit of code, here is what you're actually changing. And this is remain more or less the same. The actual virtual machine that interprets that code is being optimized internally. So of course, if you cache that step, you save 2 before that makes it faster.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I have a silly question. Do you
Okay.
think PHP 8 will just drop dollar signs and become Java essentially?
I would love to. I would love to. So we can call it Fava or something like that. It would be a nice name. But actually, if you check the request for changes, those RFCs, many of them they are like in C# they do it like this, so let's do it. If you actually check it, the examples are in C# they do this, in Java they do that. That throwable interface is exactly the same in Java. That null coalescent thing is the same as C#. So
On a more serious note, do you consider the fact that we're essentially adding features to the language instead of I don't know, improving performance? Like the step that PHP 7.0 took is a very important one. It was very fast with little to no migration. I mean, that's the reason that a lot of people are considering upgrading to it. But additional changes that add some functionality that you can already easily implement with a couple of functions or a library. What's the point? What's your opinion on that?
well, I think hintings are really useful because very often, I don't know if it happened to you, but if you pass number 3 as a boolean, it actually returns true. If you throw false as a string and you validate, like you cast it as a boolean, it says that is true. So if you have, it happened to me, like you are consuming some API and it's then true the word. You cast it to boolean and it says the word false is casted to true. So those things are, I think, they are actually useful. For the features, there isn't that much. I think it's the type hinting, those couple more, and that's about it. They say Zen says that performance is the main goal they want to do. For 7.1, I checked some charts of people playing with it, and it didn't get much faster than 7.0. But they say they have the wildcard of the JIT, the just-in-time compiler, that they tried but it didn't work, so they say that they can do it and be faster than HSVM. So I think those features that are useful, maybe too much with those in the classes, maybe it's a step too much, but for some functions I think it's useful.
Thanks.
No more questions? Okay, thank you very much.